Good evening and welcome to the Hudson 7 Drinking Water Council's monthly meeting. Today is Thursday, October the 15th. My name is Rebecca Martin and I am the Water Quality Program Campaign Manager for Riverkeeper, an acting coordinator, a non-voting member, and co-organizer with the Town of Hyde Park's Deputy Supervisor, Neil Krupnick, for tonight's Hudson 7's virtual meeting. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines and abbreviated procedures. The procedures are available in full on the Hudson 7's meeting page at www.hudson7.org. The Hudson 7's meetings are recorded and streamed live on their YouTube channel page. A link to their page can be found on the meeting page of their website, www.hudson7.org/meeting page. The public is advised to subscribe to this channel to receive notifications when meetings begin. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the Hudson 7's website at a later date. If a member of the public would like to participate during the public comment section of our remote meetings, either audio or video, pre-registration is required. Written comments may be submitted to be read on record as well. For more detailed information on how to pre-register and submit public comment, please visit the meeting page on the Hudson 7's website. For those who are pre-registered this evening, once you are logged in, you will be placed in the virtual waiting room. The moderator will let you into the meeting at the appropriate time. You can watch the proceedings of the meeting via the live stream link while you are waiting. When you enter the meeting, you will be muted to give you time to turn off the volume on your YouTube link to prevent feedback. You will be asked to state your name and your municipality. Hudson 7 council members, please control your own mute button, and that pertains to guests as well. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a Hudson 7 member wishes to speak, please raise your hand and the chairperson will call on you to speak. Before you speak, please state your name and municipality for any audio listeners. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Hudson 7 Chair, the Village of Rhinebeck Mayor, Gary Bassett, Hudson 7 Vice Chair, Town of Poughkeepsie Supervisor, J. John Baisley is not present. Hudson 7 Secretary, the Town of Hyde Park Deputy Supervisor, Neil Krupnick. Okay, Hudson 7 committee members, voting members. We have the, the Town of Esopus Supervisor, Shannon Harris.
Present.
Town of Lloyd, environmental or ECC member, Neil Curry.
Hi, present.
Great. Non-voting members, Dan Shapley, Director of the Water Quality Program at Riverkeeper.
Present.
Hudson 7 Technical Advisors, Paul Melrose and Emily Swenson. Hi. We have Dutchess County representatives for the Hudson 7, Brad Barkley.
Here.
Dutchess County Planning.
Here.
Thank you. From Ulster County, we have the Director of the Department of the Environment, Amanda Laval.
Hello.
And from the Department of Environment, Europa McGovern.
Present.
Great. And also who joined us recently, we have Town of Lloyd Deputy Supervisor, Russell Gilmore.
Hello.
Gary, we have a quorum. We have 5 voting members. And now, on behalf of the Hudson 7, I turn the floor over to Chairman Gary Bassett.
Welcome, everyone. Again, it's great to see everybody and being able to attend and share all our concerns in protecting not only the Hudson River, but the Hudson River watershed area as we work together jointly as municipalities to do this. So thank you. I'd like to get this meeting started by first reviewing the minutes. We need to do a revote on our August 20th meeting minutes. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the August 2020 meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Neil second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
So, thank you. All right. Now last month's meeting minutes, approval for the 9/17/20 meeting. I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Second by Neil. Any discussion, changes? All right, all in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, communications. I think Susie's here. Yes. Hi, Susie. Welcome to our meeting. That's great.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
thank you so much. I'm actually, I didn't realize how quick 3 minutes can fly. So I'm going to dive in really quickly in respect of your time. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself and talk about the research that I'm working on. I am a 2021 Masters of Science candidate in climate science and policy at Bard. And after speaking with my friends at Riverkeeper, I was excited about the opportunity to bring potential solutions to this group by way of my thesis. My focus is contingency plans for appropriate alternative drinking water source solutions in the event that the Hudson River as a primary and sole drinking water source is inaccessible or unsafe for human consumption. I've compartmentalized causes into 2 buckets. One of them is salt intrusion via the salt point moving north, and the others are basically almost everything else that could be caused, be they chemical spills or cargo, chemical spills from cargo vessels or train derailments, things of that nature, I suppose. But there are some caveats to the work as it's kind of guided by certain limitations and restrictions that I'll have due to some of the academic rigor that's required. So as a result, I need to limit my scope, and what I've determined to do is I'll be excluding any of the salt intrusion types of causes. Again, the salt point moving north would be, a desalinization issue. And I can only really have time right now to focus on one community or one treatment plan at the time. And so I've selected Poughkeepsie just due to the fact that it serves the largest population. Given time, I'd love the opportunity to expand the scope and the focus to all Hudson 7 communities. And also there is a lot of data from the Carey Institute that I would really love to dive into, and that's all on that salt point issue. But I'm not sure, and obviously I want to be very specific about what I know I can be able to achieve, and that will be limited to what I suggested before. So really the next steps for me are to complete a literature review, and that would be helpful in trying to understand how others may have handled similar potable water emergency issues. And then I'm doing primary research, so I need to kind of create and test and field a questionnaire that will be used to provide a standardized questions so that data can be aggregated and I can present formal recommendations. Randy and Paul, nice to see you. They've given me, they've been very generous with their time so far and information that they've shared. And I really do hope to connect with others in the Hudson 7 as my research progresses. So I'm really kind of just hopeful that the results, regardless of whether I have the opportunity to expand to all Hudson 7 communities or go deeper into my research, that it'll be informative. And I'm just wanted to say hello to everyone, hoping that you welcome the research and happy to answer any questions you may have or concerns you may have about the work I'll be doing.
Any questions for Susie?
Neil has his hand up. Neil Curry.
I don't see it. There we go.
I don't. That was just saying that was just voting on approval of the notes before.
Thanks, Neil.
Susie, I have a question. What is the timeline for this, for your work?
So I've already started down the path of literature review, and the expectation is the end result will be available April, May.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions for Susie? Having no questions, thank you very much, Susie. We're looking forward. I assume we'll get a report back, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Out there.
And
Yeah.
Susie, you're speaking directly to Randy?
Yes, I've spoken with Randy on a number of occasions. I'm sure that he'll probably be hearing from me again.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on. The item B on this list is the sodium levels up in the Poughkeepsie drinking water. And I think this is just for information for anybody to reach out to Randy and have a discussion if they want to learn more about those sodium levels in the drinking water. I think this is important because as we all share this information and learn what the Poughkeepsie water treatment plant does, we can all learn and maybe copy and mimic a lot of that. So a great way to share information. And I plan on reaching out to Randy myself to do that. Next item. So this was the reading of John Liskin on the New England's biggest renewable energy project is a really win for climate. This is part of an article that is of interest for everybody to read. I don't know if there's any need for comment, but it was just a way to pass on additional information in our organization. And Bill Carlos just joined us. Hello, Bill. No, not yet. Hello, Bill. Can you hear us?
I can.
Very good. Welcome.
Sorry I was a little late.
Hi,
All
Bill.
right.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Dan. Susie, Paul, Emily, Russ.
Bill.
Okay, there was some late news that was added to the agenda. The notice of violations of the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act in connection with the Champlain Hudson River Express project. That just came out. I think there was an attachment in the email that Rebecca sent. I hope you have all taken time to read that. And then the Wappinger Creek Federal Superfund site progress. The remedial investigation feasibility study and work plan that was completed by the EPA has contracted to begin. Dan, maybe can you have any information on this? Or want to share anything?
Just a little. So this Superfund site is the mouth of the Wappinger Creek. So if you know Wappinger's Falls, there's the dam and the falls right in the village. Downstream of that is the Wappinger Creek and it's tidal. It's connected directly to the Hudson at that point. The shoreline was a bleachery and anodizing plant and a whole bunch of other industry back in the day. And the DEC cleaned up the land part of the contamination, I want to say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. But just a few years ago, asked the EPA, the federal agency, to step in to clean up and take over the oversight of the cleanup for the contaminants that are in the sediment of the creek bed itself. So this cleanup is for that, the sediment of the creek in that area. As I said, that's directly connected to the Hudson, so it's a Superfund site. If you remember our Hudson 7 map that showed, based on the Department of Health's delineation, what part of the the massive Hudson River watershed is sort of relevant for the Hudson 7. This is actually just south. The line that would be drawn by that mapping was just north of the mouth of the Wappinger Creek. But I think it's, we don't really, we know that delineation is a draft. So I think it's worth paying attention to this site. This process, the Superfund process, is very long. This step is the first step where they begin to investigate the extent of the contamination and develop alternatives for how they might clean it up. I don't know yet how long they anticipate that will take. I did get a copy of the work plan. I can share it with anyone who's interested. I guess we'll just send it around just so anyone can look at it if they want. It's a technical document though, so probably not good reading material for most of us. But the actual investigation is starting. That's really the news. Any questions about that?
Paul has his hand up.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
I'm very concerned about this Champaign Hudson Mountain Express project, and maybe Dan can add some more. I'm going back an item. What they're planning to do is put a high-powered electrical wire in the Hudson River, and basically they're going to be digging a trench 3 feet deep past all our intakes, not just Poughkeepsie, all of them. And to disrupt the Hudson River like that is just incredible to me. I know Riverkeepers supported the project initially because it was providing clean energy, but what this is going to do, and now they don't support it, let me say that, but there was absolutely no comment in this paper on the water intakes. Once again, as we are with the Central Hudson project, we're more concerned about fish than the drinking water. And don't get me wrong, I'm very concerned about the fish. But for anybody to be dragging a grappling hook across the Hudson River, this has got to be a major project that we're all very concerned about. And Dan, I don't know, maybe I'm overstating it, but I just couldn't believe it when I read this. I thought this was a project, up in Canada that wasn't going to involve us, but this is a very serious project that's going to have serious impacts. For example, it could tear into one of our intakes. So Dan, am I overstating this?
Well, I can't, unfortunately, I need to, I haven't been the one in our office most focused on this issue, so I don't know all of the details. So I can't, I think we have a presentation scheduled. When is that, Rebecca? Is that next month? Or next month with the company that is organizing, that is proposing this project, because some of the questions came up around the route, notification, working with our communities, all of that. I think the lawsuit or the notice of violation that could precede a lawsuit is focused on endangered species, because that was a violation. So it's not to say that there aren't other concerns, but that was a concern that was a violation of laws, as I think it's the Center for Biological Diversity identified. So
Yes.
maybe that's as much as I feel like I'm equipped to say right now, but I'd be happy to try and follow up more.
Well, the big thing is, did they consider the drinking water intakes in Ulster County and Dutchess County? I mean, this thing goes right by everybody's intake.
Hey, Paul. So we've been talking with Jennifer White, and I think you're reacting to the late communication today that we received.
Yes.
From her. Shannon had wanted to learn more about this. It was either last month or the month before. And so we were able to identify a good contact. And Jennifer we're trying to get her to come in to speak with the Hudson 7, and especially about drinking water, of course, and requesting that she bring in with her diagrams of the latest rate and bury depth of the proposal, so that we'll have something actual and factual to look at, the most up-to-date material. So that is definitely happening, and the Hudson 7 will have a chance to really dig in and ask questions, which I think will be good. So that is on the horizon.
I remember you talking about 2 months ago, but once again, I didn't realize that it was this far down in the Hudson River, but the transmission main goes from Canada to Queens in New York City.
Yeah.
Bill,
Randy and I spoke to me about this about a year ago. And my first reaction wasn't the intakes. And I was knee deep in intakes at that point. It's the gas lines and electric lines that cross the Hudson River. I'm sure everybody knows that we have them go right across in front of Poughkeepsie. High voltage electric and gas. So the question I asked was, what are they going to do when they get there? They're going to lay it over them. I'm not an engineer. I'm a retired cop from a small town. To put a high charge voltage cable on top of a gas line flies in the face of common sense. That's my point. Thank you.
yeah, Bill, that was a comment that was brought up either, and we learned furthermore that they were going to encase all that in concrete when they go over those sites. Now, what does that mean? I'm not sure, but the feedback that we got was that they were all going to, when they cross over any gas or electric, it had to be encased in some type of concrete to protect it.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't know. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying what they're doing.
What they said they were going to do.
Yes. Very good point.
Sorry, that's the old cop in me coming out.
Yes.
I could say one other thing, I think to Paul's point, that there is a parallel I see in this project to the Central Hudson cleanup, in that when this, going back many years now, when this project was first proposed, there were negotiations with DEC and Riverkeeper and others to try and say, which parts of the river are most sensitive and do we need to be most concerned about? And you're right, Paul, the concern was all about habitat and fish, and the intakes, as far as I know, never entered anyone's negotiation at that time. So I think since it's another example of, now that the Hudson 7 exists and the awareness is so much different today than it was then, that now it's a chance to influence this project as well, just as the cleanup of the manufactured gas coal tar was influenced. So it's unfortunate that the awareness wasn't there then, but it is there now, and that's the function that the group has played.
And Dan, I also put it in parallel to the work we did with the Coast Guard. And now we're really working closely with the Coast Guard on a disaster plan and recovery for any type of oil spill contamination in the Hudson River. And that's a first, right? For those who didn't know, I mean, it's still under a lot of discussion and not publicly available, but for an organization like Hudson 7 to be brought to the table in the early stages of the planning process is going to be a first. So we're getting attention, and I think a parallel to this is the Champlain electric line as well. That we need to be very cognizant of what's happening and making sure we're not only protecting our drinking water, but endangered species.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Paul. I just want to, Amanda Laval is here and has a tight schedule. So I wanted to see if we could bring her forward. Actually, I'm sorry, before we do that, We have public comment, don't we?
Yes, we do. Neil, is there anybody that was registered for public comment?
No, there's not.
Okay, so we'll move on. So Amanda, welcome. How can you update us on your efforts?
Thank you. I guess I was speaking with Riverkeeper recently, and we were discussing, among things, the legislation, which Riverkeeper is doing quite a bit to educate folks about, which would amend the New York State conservation law to add Class Cs to the streams, Class C streams to the protected list in New York State. Currently, much of the burden of permitting around streams, falls on the DEC, and through a permit that you have to apply for if you're going to disturb the better banks of a protected stream. Right now, that's based on the class and standard, and those are related to use, drinking water, swimming, different types of recreation of the water, as well as a standard, which is related to whether or not that water body is known to support trout or trout spawning. So the legislation has passed both the Senate and the Assembly and is currently waiting with the governor, although it seems that there's some indication that it might not be signed because of the increase in administrative burden to the DEC. However, as we were kind of discussing this on the county level at the EMC, we decided, well, let's take a look at what those streams look like and where they're located, just a snapshot in Ulster County, for example. And I put together this map where you can see the county boundary as well as the town boundaries, which are in a gray in this. And then the streams that are already protected, which means they're CT, CTS, A's or B's in blues. And we have lots of those up in the Catskills and in the Shawangums. And then the streams that would be, are slated to be protected under this legislation, which are in yellow. And gosh, I was really surprised at this to see just the number of miles of streams. And that the high distribution along the Hudson River towns and the direct kind of those near tributaries right to the Hudson. Yep, down there in Marlborough, Lloyd, kind of shocking. Also, even the main stem of the Rondout in the tidal section, so from the Eddyville Dam downstream, is all C, meaning you don't need a DEC stream disturbance permit. Technically, people would need a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to do work in those areas. However, they're very far away and not really as involved as the DEC when it comes to permitting there. So I think, looking at this, we're going to continue to talk at the county level, but I think there are some very interesting observations, excuse me, as far as the distribution, kind of the bias in what's protected in New York State when it comes to cold water streams, what neighborhoods these are in, whether or not they're supporting drinking water, doesn't seem to go too much into it, and also the direct tributaries to the Hudson. I'm going to stop there because I have to get a drink.
Amanda, what were the red on the chart?
Oh my goodness. So those are D streams. So, all right. I don't know,
Any other-
Rebecca, did you have other questions kind of related to that? Or is it just kind of that looking at the map and seeing that distribution?
That, I think it was also important for the Hudson 7 to see the Class C streams that outline the shorelines of the Hudson and their drinking water source. So, Dan.
I recall that the scorecard report that the Center for Watershed Protection produced for the Hudson 7 also identified this issue, not with the same, I think it's so, Amanda's map just illustrated it in a way I'd never seen before, and it made it so obvious. But the fact is, a lot of the streams that flow directly to the Hudson here, the drinking water supply area, are not protected. So I think that's the basic, really, reality here. As Amanda said, Riverkeeper's advocating for we advocated to get this law passed. The legislature really passed it in 2 successive years. They had all but approved it 2 years ago, and then like the clock ran out in a weird way, and it didn't finally get done. So the Senate and the Assembly have each voted twice now to approve this. It has a lot of support, but the governor may not sign it. I would recommend that the council consider a letter to the governor asking him to sign it and citing some of this information.
And we have in Ulster County, we have a meeting of our our water quality coordinating committee on Monday. And we're going to have a brief presentation by Jim Richardson of Riverkeeper on this topic. And it's going to be paired with a presentation from the state on the drinking water source protection program. And I think those things taken together, start to say, maybe we need to be saying something a little bit louder about protecting these water courses at the state level, but then also looking at how we can kind of, from the county level, coordinate and support municipalities in protecting streams and their drinking water. Because I've seen towns over the years go through quite a variety of hoops to attempt to even get streams protected in their communities. And it does become kind of a patchwork of different types of legislation. So exploring exactly where the county could lean into that and support, kind of looking up to the state, but also looking at doing something more coordinated with the municipalities.
Rebecca.
Brad and Amanda, do we know what the Dutchess County side looks like in terms of Class C streams and the Hudson River?
I was just thinking of looking at that. So I'll ask Devin, who's our GIS person, to put together a map so that we can review that.
I know in Hyde Park, a lot of our streams, even larger ones, are Class C. So it really does make a big difference to include those.
Well, yeah, and C is just kind of if it's not special for some other reason. Right. C is just normal stream. D streams are impaired streams. So, if it's not impaired and it doesn't have any special protection attached to it, then it's a C stream. So, I mean, we can certainly look at what those are just in case the governor doesn't sign this.
It has us thinking about that kind of historic bias where, it's drinking water, bathing, and then trout recreation, like as a particularly, although trout habitat may be indicators or kind of, an ecological umbrella in some ways, that if you protect that, you're protecting other important habitat. However, I think in many decades that kind of understanding has expanded, that may not be the best surrogate for protecting streams.
Well, I mean, to be honest, trout was an economic indicator as well. Always, even more in Ulster than in Dutchess. Although we have many fine trout streams, spring-fed trout streams, especially out in the Harlem Valley, because of all the limestone out there, that are protected. And in those streams, actually, they don't do the hatchery releases because the native trout are better than that.
The Fallkill Creek, is that a C stream?
Yes.
Okay. And everybody knows about the Dutchess County Fire Training Center and the foam being used at the center to train the police, to train the firefighters going into the Fallkill Creek.
Yeah, Bill,
And,
it's on the agenda too for later this evening.
oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
I can wait.
Please. All right, any other questions for Amanda? All right, so I think we should be moving on. So the next part is,
Thank you, Amanda.
yes, thank you very much, Amanda. And Brad, you had a great segue into this. I think there was a recent meeting with you, Dan, and Europa on some of the mapping, right?
Yeah, we did talk about that, and how we can move forward with looking at some of our existing databases. I know Devin, who is our GIS person, in particular was concerned with some of the county health department databases as to the accuracy of the data and how they recorded. So he was going to start looking into that on our side. Europa, you want to talk about your side?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in the same place. We don't have one of our GIS people specifically on this right now, but we have an inquiry in with our health department about the status of the source water assessments back from the early aughts. So, Brad, if we get an update from our folks over there, we'll let you know directly as well.
And we'll keep Dan in the loop as well.
Very good.
So
Sounds great.
I'm sorry, I'm listening while I'm tending to my 3-year-old, but was there a question about mapping the streams in the classification Dutchess County?
Yes, that's the subject we were just talking about, Neil, in terms of the effort being put forward by both Europa and Brad, with their GIS mapping to map both these sides of the Hudson River.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Well, and what we're talking, actually, we moved on from I did say that we try and look at what we have for streams in Dutchess, but this was talking about the water source protection. So it's really more on the contaminant source type of issues that we'd be getting from health department records.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay.
Exactly. And I just had a question. Dan, were you planning on providing a brief update, if there is any, on the state consultant support? I'm not sure if there's any news since the last meeting, but I was curious about that.
And Shannon might have something in the next item as well. All I've heard is that the State Office of General Services, OGS, approved this DEC actually starting to spend money. So that's just another small step. Last time we learned that they had chosen consultants and that there were dollar figures associated with those contracts. Now, I think they have to go ahead to actually spend that money that they put on paper, as best I understand. So it sounds like we are taking steps forward, but still no word on actually announcing which communities will get the assistance.
Okay, great.
Well, I that's hopeful. We called and got a hold of the Contracts and Grants Division at the DEC to inquire about the source water protection that we applied for. They're looking into it now and will call me back. The suspicion, though, is that we were not awarded the grant. They said that the letters went out in April and May. I guess the letters went out in COVID, if that's true, or if maybe I got a hold of someone who's lower level and isn't aware of some things that may have happened at other levels or other departments. I think I got a hold of the right group, and I followed the email that was the contact when we did the initial application. So I'm hoping that one group isn't talking to the other and that's not the end of the story and that they'll call back and magically the verdict will still be out on that grant for us. But I have done some sleuthing and I'm not sure it's going to be positive. We'll be pleasantly surprised if it is.
And can I share that that for Ulster County, we're having a public water quality coordinating committee meeting, which we have a couple of a year on Monday. And Amanda has actually invited someone from the DWSP2, the State Drinking Water Source Protection Program, to present on that. So I'll try to make sure to get a direct question into them as well as to the status of that. And I'll just share very briefly with the group that I spoke to Pat Pomeroy, the executive director at the Hudson Valley Regional Council, as I've been kind of providing updates all along the way here, is that they're pursuing a concurrent process, right? Sort of piloting this framework for the Drinking Water Source Protection 2 program that hopefully the Hudson 7 and other local municipalities will get that consultant support for. And so with the Hudson Valley Regional Council, I know they're able to work with Russell Urban Mead, who with the village of New Paltz. And so they're actually a few steps ahead already. They've been assessing the water supply with support from him, and they're starting to look at threats now. And so that's something that perhaps at a future meeting, when we're ready to start really gearing up on this part of the project, that we may want to invite someone from New Paltz or Hudson Valley Regional Council to, kind of provide an overview of that process.
That's a good segue, Gary.
Yes, it is, into that next segment. So, we've been discussing all of this along, which Shannon, your help for reaching out to the DEC, thank you, and doing that, right? And all additional regions that are working on the regional councils have been included there for your information as well. Okay, so let's jump to the Central Hudson. And the DEC determined that the plans are adequate for hydraulic dredging and pilot tests. I don't know about any of you, but I actually got a letter right to my home about this. And, so Central Hudson did a mass mailing, on this subject. Bill, since Randy's not here, do you have any updates on anything else in terms of their pilot?
Yes. As we talk about this, everybody who's here, could it be that the Hudson 7, for the impact and the number of people that we serve, could have somehow shed the light on Central Hudson, and now all of a sudden we have a lot? And the second part of that is, in the documentation that came through for permission to do this dredging, DEC, I've never seen them that specific and that on the mark on this. They really were, and I think we're okay. This dredging is supposed to start with a non-contaminated area, and everybody knows what a negative pressure dredge is like. It's like a big vacuum cleaner with a drill bit at the end of it. They've narrowed down the site to approximately 7 acres, and it's at the deepest part that they found in the study. The coal tar is 7 feet thick. So this is a massive project that they're doing, and they've decided to test it, and it's going to be next month on a non-contaminated area to see if the whole process works. The suction dredge sucks everything up. It goes to a barge where it goes into big plastic pillows, and that gets transferred to the watering plant on the shore, and the water being returned back to the river should be okay. I'm just pleased. And the part, I'm not like an insider to this. And I know where we were when we first started talking about this organization, Hudson 7, and how defenseless I know the people that I work with felt as to now. So kudos to the Hudson 7. And if anything goes wrong, I'll let you know. By the way, the water plant has its new mass spectrometer online. Central Hudson made a donation to the purchase of that. And I saw it Thursday, the people there from the company, and it's online. So now in the background of this, we've talked about having our operations people meet and be able to share information and share equipment. There's an operating mass spectrometer in Poughkeepsie.
Right.
Okay, so things will have to be worked out about how we do that and when we do that. But all of this improvement is because 7 communities got together and decided that that was enough. And it now has significant amount of clout. Thank all 7 of you. And I'll mute myself so I don't talk myself sick here.
Thanks,
I
Bill.
could just add a technical advisor note, the mass spectrometry, whatever machine that Bill's talking about, basically a way to measure lots of different types of chemicals in a water sample. So what he's saying is that, over time, all the water systems that might need that can get it, through Poughkeepsie as the equipment sharing and the services sharing agreements get up and running. So it's a big new capacity for not just Poughkeepsie, but the Hudson 7.
That's great, and then hope we can get some early warning with the use of this so that we can plan. And the issue is, how do we plan for the future and equipment in all of our water treatment plants? They handle this. That's what worries me, as we know the river's going to evolve and change. Okay, so we've touched on this briefly. We got a brief letter from Jennifer White today. I have not had a chance to read it. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look at that yet, but we're back to the Champlain Hudson Power Express presentation. So Paul, everybody, so let's weigh in. Let's keep the pressure there and see what we need to do, what we need to do.
Gary, if I can just suggest everybody take time to read her response, and that we will work to get her here next month. And if we do that, then we'll be ready to ask a lot of questions based on the info, and we'll make sure she brings good diagrams to review.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, can you give us an update on what you're working on and, for American Water Works?
Sure. I completed my presentation and I sent it to Randy, Dan, and Bill about a week ago. Dan and Randy gave me some comments, which I incorporated. We went back and forth on how to say things, but that worked out really well. What I basically did was I took some of the stuff that Dan wrote and saying what the accomplishments of the Hudson 7 were, and put out examples of what you guys have done. And what really amazed me was that you guys have been in existence for 18 months and your accomplishments have been unbelievable, in my opinion, as Bill just stated. And there's I found a lot of good information on the Central Hudson project that I put in. I think I bored Dan about it, but there's a lot of good stuff and the engineering stuff in there. And I put thanks to Neil's help, I was able to put the presentation on the Hudson 7 site. It's under New York AWWA. I also put in the video that the city of Poughkeepsie did along with the Hudson 7 is in that folder. So I'm planning on showing both. My big thing is to encourage other communities in New York State that share source water to get together with environmental groups and to protect their water source. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for their help, and especially Dan and Bill and Randy.
Thank you, Paul. All right, we're coming up on the hour here, so I'm going to try to keep moving. Emily, do you have a brief update for us?
My only update is that I haven't done anything on this since since last
Really?
month. I'm sorry to say. So we're still at 3 complete, and I will try to pick up the pace.
Thank you, Emily. All right, again, our goal has always been to merge together and talk together, not merge, but have all our water plants operators working together. So this is just a kind of a placeholder, and we got to continue doing that. We have the living document that's out. I hope all the other municipalities have shared it. I've shared it with my water department to be able to do, and the more we can keep focusing on that, that's another kind of a great accomplishment that we need to do. Rebecca, you're actually working on a shared service agreement as well, right?
Yeah, I sent examples to the Hudson 7, 2 from Gary for the village and town of Rhinebeck, and 1 that came in from Dr. Jerry Benjamin from the Benjamin Center. So if you'd like, I could draft something specific to the Hudson 7 to be reviewed as a shared service document using these examples. Run it by Dan, and then send it through for consideration. Then you'll have your toolkit together.
And does anybody have any objection to that, to creating a draft? I don't think it's a votable thing, but I think, Rebecca, I would like it as well. I see Shannon shaking, I see Bill. So will you do that?
Yep, I'd be happy.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, the Latin funding is just a placeholder that we're going to keep carrying. And the last item, which Bill actually introduced earlier on, was an update on the Dutchess County Fire Training and the Superfund Registry. I don't know, Dan, who's best to update us here on what's going on that site right now, the Fall Kill Stream?
I think as it says here in the agenda, I did reach out to the DEC site manager for that cleanup and suggested various among us to be added to the contact list so that you'll get direct notices directly about milestones and public outreach. Believe they said they would be doing some public outreach soon, though I would expect you'll hear something. That's about the only update I have. I think the request last month was to make sure you all got on the list, and so Randy and Gary, as well as me and Rebecca, should be on the contact list now. We also worked to get some of the Northside Collaborative and Scenic Hudson on that list as well, because they work along the creek.
Thank you. I mean, one of my goals was to go through the county budget when that's available, and see if there's a line item there. And if there's a line item, that'll be important to know.
Yeah, and I don't know if Brad is prepared to speak to this, but one thing I did learn on that is that DEC had been asking Dutchess County to do this investigation, to fund it, and to, which is, the next stage is an investigation of the cleanup needs at the site. And I don't have any documents that speak to this or anything, but my understanding is that Dutchess County in some way or another declined or refused. So now that's why it's in the state Superfund program. State Superfund pays for orphan sites, or sites where the landowner or the company or entity deemed responsible for the contamination is not either doesn't have the funds or otherwise is not participating in the cleanup. So there's something, there might be something to understand in the relationship between Dutchess and DEC on the subject of this cleanup.
I would say my understanding is that the site was listed by the state kind of en masse with a lot of these fire training sites. I know the airport also has some concerns. I do not know where the investigation level is, or what the county has done to this point. So I can follow up with that, but my understanding is this is a very very beginning. I don't think this is based on any testing or anything else like that. I think it's based on the fact of known usage.
I think it started with known usage, and there has been some testing because that's reflected in the fact sheet that the DEC sent around. And so there's pretty high levels in the soil, but the test, I think it was a single test result in the creek itself, was not very high. You know, it was over the new drinking water standard, but barely. So you know, it's something to watch, and that I personally would think there's more testing needed to really feel confident that that one sample is indicative of the conditions in the creek overall and what might be flowing to the Hudson. But that's sort of the state of the knowledge is relatively small from the testing, and the next step is a lot more testing.
Agreed.
Emily, did you have a question?
No, I was just agreeing with Dan. Sorry.
Okay, all right. That brings us to the end of the agenda, and we're just on time. Oh, Rebecca, I see you raise your hand.
One
I'm
thing.
going to ask any other questions.
Yep. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to circle back to see how the Hudson 7 felt about Dan's suggestion of considering a letter to Governor Cuomo asking him to pass the Class C stream bill. We didn't discuss that or finish that conversation.
Well, I think I'll step in here. I think it doesn't hurt to ever do that, right? To send a letter and have us all sign it representing the 107,000. So I'd like to make a motion that we have Dan's draft letter. Bill, second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. So,
Dan, can you take that on?
Yeah, and Dan, maybe we can look at the timeline and if we need to get it done before next meeting, is there any problem to sending the letter around for approvals via email, just in case? I just want to have that option if we need it, if that's okay, rather than waiting until the next meeting.
Is that really necessary? Can't the chair approve a letter like this once we give them the authority?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what they've done in the past.
I think the easiest is usually the best.
Okay.
Sorry, Gary.
That's all right. Bill, we can execute on it very quickly.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't see this as holding us up.
Okay.
Is it a worthwhile effort to go back to the communities as well to get resolutions from the town and village boards?
Well, I think that let's get the letter going and let's see what the timeline is, Neil, before we do that, because you know all of us have meetings at different times of the month. That may push us out past the deadline. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Neil, are you suggesting that the Hudson 7 do the letter, but in addition, the communities could also pass a memorializing resolution or a resolution to support the governor to pass this bill?
Yes. So yeah, as we have in the past with a letter that either, you know, we adopt wholly or adapt, and then pass off to the town board to approve a resolution supporting the effort. So either way.
I mean, I don't see a problem with it, but this is such a grand scale all the way up to Hudson River coastline. We could do it, but we're as an organization, I think we represent 107,000 people in our district that really are impacted.
Sure. Yeah.
My opinion.
No, that's fine. I think, I mean, now that Russ is involved, I think that's, you know, before it seemed like Lloyd was a bit of a stepchild to the group, but we were always able to come through with letters of support or resolutions when we needed to. But I think since Russ is involved, we have a little bit more investment in the group now.
What I think is important, Neil, is that we all sign it.
Yeah.
Right? the signatures and send it with signatures.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for the meeting or for the group? Hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Seconded by Bill. All in favor, say aye. And raise your hand.
Aye.
Hey,
Thank you
have a
all.
great, wonderful week and enjoy the rest of the fall. See you. Hope to
Thanks,
see you all soon.
everybody. Great to see everybody.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Same here. Thank you, Rebecca and Gary.